here. What is it, episode 9? So you've stuck with us for almost 10 episodes at this point, 9 weeks in a row, a little over 2 months. That's impressive. So what do they say? If you build a habit over, or if you build a routine over 2 months, it becomes a habit or something. So hopefully we got some habitual TNJ watchers on here. So this has been kind of a fun episode. It's almost like you could sit and have a beer and just kind of chill and listen to this episode, because we're going to drone on a little bit about what we were like in high school. Actually thought about asking you guys to send like your high school yearbook photos as the headshots, because I'm sure that would be fun for all of us to see.
Nobody wants to see that.
But then I realized, I don't want to share my own, so obviously I'm not going to ask anybody else to do it. So today we're gonna time warp back a little bit, walk down memory lane to think about what we were thinking about as high school students. For some of us, medicine might not have even been on our radar. For others, even if it was, we definitely had no clue what we were doing at that point and what it would be like. But this is the start of every good neurosurgeon's journey. Is what were they doing in high school, and what led them down this path, either during high school or later on. And we did this because we realized, we do have a following of that kind of 16 to 18-year-old range. So we know that there are some current high school students out there that we haven't necessarily been catering our content to. We wanted to make an effort to kind of reach out to you guys tonight, and likely in a part 2 episode, talking about college a little bit more. Just introduction. So I'm Mike Rallo. We've got Taylor Reardon up in the top right there, and Kyle Zappi down in the bottom. So we're all medical students at various stages in training, and some of us are closer to becoming neurosurgeons than others, but hopefully we can all share perspectives on what the journey is. So how you all doing tonight?
I'm great.
Doing well.
Yeah, excited to channel the high school self.
I have not thought about high school since high school, so I'm going to see. I can remember what I was even doing.
I could probably tell you what I was eating most days, because I just have a really vivid memory for that, but that's about it.
Okay, well, we can discuss that too. We'll discuss all of it.
Yeah. So, all right, so let's dig into it. So, we might have talked about this a little bit, but where'd you all grow up, and where'd you go to high school? So, Taylor, you want to kick that one off?
Yeah, sure. So I grew up in Northwest Ohio. I say I'm from a town called Findlay, Ohio, but I did most of my growing up in a small town next to it called Macomb, Ohio. It's a village that's about 3,600 people. Cornfields in all directions, it's the flattest earth you can look at, but it's a very humble town with some of the nicest people. I went to high school at Macomb High School, which is the smallest high school in like division sports in Ohio. We were D7 in football. I graduated with, I believe, about 52 people in my class, and we were the largest at the time. So it went like 52, 48, 44, and like 41. So I knew all my friends' parents, and I knew everyone in the high school by name and their parents. And, we pretty much, it was just a really small town, vibe there. That's pretty much where I grew up. I'm from really, really small areas.
So we got small Midwest town, Taylor there. Awesome. Yeah. All right. And how about you, Kyle?
All right. I'm going to go crazy and say I'm from a small southern town. So, so I grew up the first 10 years of my life in a small town called Starkville, Mississippi. Pretty much known only for Mississippi State. But I moved back to Louisiana when I was 10, went to high school in Louisiana. It's like 100,000 person town. Rather cool music scene, a lot of Cajun music. Food's insane, like fantastic food. Actually really like my hometown. So, I'll say good things about it. Don't worry.
Solid. I like to think I'm from a small town, but it's an hour outside of New York City, so it's not small. It's it's a typical city suburb. I just like to sing country music and claim to be from a small town that way. But so I also am in the same boat. I love my hometown. still get back there, pretty often. So I grew up in Monroe, New York. Really the only thing people know is Woodbury Commons, which is like a big shopping outlet there. And then we're about 15 minutes from West Point, the military academy. So right on the Hudson River there. Definitely an interesting mix when I look back. Like you've got the people who moved out of the city, but still kind of have a city vibe. And then you've got like sort of, as you're getting towards upstate New York, a little bit more of that like rural kind of country vibe. We're about an hour from where Woodstock was. So that's always a cool scene to go up and see concerts there. But yeah.
New Jersey. I actually went to New Jersey for the first time a year ago, and you nailed it. Like I didn't know what to think that New Jersey was going to be. Like I thought it was going to be very city, but it's really pretty and rural out there. Like I know what you're like. It's really interesting.
Yeah. Definitely, it's an interesting part of the country because you go like, I mean, obviously New York City and it's crazy, and there's, you could walk down a street and hear 100 different languages, and then you go out to some pretty kind of suburban to rural areas of New York and New Jersey. So it's a nice spot. All right, so now we kind of established our background, so it's kind of cool here. We've got Northeast, we've got Midwest, and we've got the South represented. So nobody from the West Coast, but maybe that's all right. Just kidding. We love the West Coast.
We love the West Coast.
Yeah, we did. All right, so think back to high school. So what did you want to be when you grew up at that point? Was medicine on your radar, or were you just kind of getting through classes at that point?
I think when I was, so my family is like everybody in my family is like either an engineer or a nurse. We have a real divide when it comes to there. So that's basically the two career paths I could have gone on. And like my dad's an engineer, other grandfather, everybody's an engineer. So I always thought I was going to be an engineer. And I went to undergrad thinking I was going to be a chemical engineer, like do what everybody else was doing. But kind of when I got to college, when I realized I didn't like the jobs that I would be working as if I went into that profession, like, but to talk more about high school, at that point when I was freshman, I think if I had to like put the tell you what I was going to be, it's probably chemical engineer.
Nice. And is that like, I mean, obviously I know kind of the Gulf states are big with oil and stuff. Is that, like a common thing job wise down there that your family was in?
Yeah. So my family is, 95% of people in Louisiana is going to be in petroleum. Either they're going to be working in like, as an operator or as an engineer. Like that's just the industry down there. My family's actually working on renewable energy. So we did a lot of like my dad works on a lot of like making biofuels. So a lot of civil engineering stuff like that.
Oh, cool. All right. Got to see you subscribe to that Green New Deal, kind of mentality there.
In a weird way, we were. We absolutely were.
Yeah.
It was, and in Louisiana,
you were trendsetters. You were thinking about it before it was cool.
Yeah. In a weird way, like Louisiana's been on that for a long time. So yeah.
Awesome.
All right, so we've got future chemical engineer Kyle. How about you, Taylor? What were you thinking back then?
Oh man. Honestly, I wasn't like too big of a planner for my future in early high school. I really was attracted to my history classes. I just had a lot of really good teachers, and I really enjoyed learning about the history of just not like the United States, but like world history. And then I think, and I know that we'll get into this later, but influences at the school kind of steered me in the direction of science. I didn't really know what I wanted to do because history was getting kind of old for me, no pun intended. And I kind of wanted to do something that just piqued my interest a little bit more. So the biology classes at my high school were what really got me into like a career in medicine. At one point I wanted to, when I was really young, I thought I could go play baseball, but then I stopped growing in 7th grade. And then I realized this wasn't for me. And so I had to move on from that dream. But I didn't really have a lot of family influences on my decisions. My dad is in social media marketing and my mom's an accountant. So I have no family members that are doctors or in the medical field, really. The closest to that is I have an aunt that works with special needs individuals at a school, and she was wonderful with them. But I didn't really have anyone, consistently bringing up the medical field. I had no exposure to it outside of doctor's appointments until I think my junior year of high school, when I joined it's kind of like a medical explorers group. And I was I was a 3-sport varsity athlete in high school. And so I didn't really have a lot of time to dedicate to it. But that was my first exposure to, I guess, what you would call medicine.
Awesome. And what was that like, the medical explorers? Was that like, I know there's like fire explorers where you're like a junior firefighter. Was it similar to that, but EMS?
It was more of, I guess, a really light interest group is what I would call it. So the hospital in my hometown offered it to students from neighboring high schools. A lot of the high schools around me were the same size, except for Findlay High School, which was the big town where I'm from, and it was about 500 people, 500 per class. So there were students from that high school and neighboring high schools. And what we would do is we would go to the hospital in our hometown. There would be speakers sometimes that would talk about like what we're doing now, their career paths. I believe one time we were able to get into the anatomy labs at the University of Findlay and look in there, which was, as a high schooler, was really, really awesome. And so that was it was essentially just an interest group for students who were interested in it, but didn't really have the resources at their high school or, family members to kind of explore that.
Mm-hmm. Cool. All right. So now we've got future baseball player Taylor, kind of taking the reins there, who's closest to being a neurosurgeon now compared to the rest of us. So as you can see, not everybody has this sense of they're going to be neurosurgeons from the day they're born. I can't claim I had that. I think if anything, maybe my mom wanted me to be more than I did when I was really little. So my mom's a nurse. And she, kind of set me up like reading her anatomy textbooks. And when I say reading, looking at pictures and, kind of being enamored with them. And then for a chunk of my childhood, up until like freshman year of high school, I thought I was going to go to the Naval Academy and be a Marine. But it turns out I'm not bad A enough to really do that. So I got caught by the science bug in freshman year. And I can almost tell you the minute that it happened. I had one really good teacher that I'll talk about a little bit later that got me into it. But from there, progressed pretty quickly into, I was like, all right, I want to do something in science. I want to do something in medicine. And that's going to be neurosurgery. And that just sort of happened as I got into science and, thought the brain was really cool. And then I was like, well, neurology doesn't seem as interesting or, as sexy as neurosurgery. So I'm going to land on that. And that's what I've been pursuing ever since. So I guess if anything, maybe I was the closest to being the, neurosurgical prodigy out of the womb. But even that would be a far cry from the truth. So, again, I hope that's showing everybody that you don't have to know what you want to be in high school. And in a lot of ways, maybe it works out better if you're not, because you give yourself time to explore. So that's, the first takeaway here is, kind of appreciate the journey and just, do what piques your interest at that point until it changes. All right.
And
so now go ahead.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say, a lot of time, those early years in high school where you're actually kind of starting to figure out what you generally want to do is just based off exposure. Seems like a lot of us at that point really wasn't exposed to neurosurgery at all very much. And at least I was fortunate enough to have a family who was in academics. My dad he was a professor, so I did have that entrance in there. So I did have that privilege, but not to the neurosurgery space. For sure.
Yeah, definitely. And there's so many conversations to be had about that and, how we can make sure that people who normally wouldn't be exposed to these fields can get that exposure. And I know the CNS is doing a lot of great work with that at their meetings, with reaching out to communities and giving, those individuals an opportunity to get exposed, which is great. And I think there's a lot of value to that. So, it's that balance of like, you don't want to track somebody and force them to go into it, but you want to make sure that everybody gets the equal exposure. All right. So we heard a little bit from Taylor. So he was the athlete out of us. I don't know if you were super athletic, Kyle, but we got the 3-sport athlete there.
Quiz bowl.
Quiz bowl. All right. I was geography bowl. That was
okay.
That was my
fellow sportsman, I can see.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I consider golf the sport that I played. So that tells you how athletic I am. So, all right, we got 2 nerds here. We got the sports guy. So we're starting to maybe see where we fit in click wise. And I use the term, nerd lovingly. All my friends were nerds. I was doing for fun, was volunteering EMS, and that was how I was spending my Friday and Saturday nights. And I would get in trouble if I was out after 11:01 on a call. That was, kind of my high school thing. I'm the oldest child, so you know how that goes, where you're kind of the most protected one. So any other cool activities that y'all were involved in high school that maybe pushed you to thinking about medicine, or just that you really enjoyed?
Like for me, like just in general science, like Science Olympiad is huge for me. I love. Do y'all know what Science Olympiad is? Okay,
yeah,
so
we
it's
had it
like
in my high school.
Okay, I'll for the sports guy. I'll translate.
Put it in my.
You would. It was not. It was the nerdiest thing you can think of. It's a competition where you had all these events, like where you had like a geography event, or like you built a bridge and you tested that bridge out. Like you had these different events that you compete against other schools. So it made science really fun because there was like an external reason to get good at it, because you wanted to win. So like, of course, you'd study like your DNA and stuff. So that's how I actually became interested in science in the first place. Other than that, like there wasn't anything specific about anatomy or healthcare in my like high school curriculum that made me drawn at that point to medicine, but definitely science was a big part of like what I like to do.
Awesome. Taylor, anything else, aside from being the sports guy?
Yeah. So, I mean, I played 3 sports in high school. I golfed in the fall. I played basketball in the winter, and then I played baseball from spring to the end of spring and summer to fall. So I was pretty much doing sports all year round. When I was a freshman in high school, I had just finished up my Eagle Scout. So I was in Boy Scouts prior to that, but I wanted to finish it before I started high school sports. I did my Eagle Scout project as I started into high school, which was a wonderful experience. Taught me a lot of just good life lessons. So I definitely recommend that to anyone looking for a nice hobby. National Honor Society. I did a little bit of quiz bowl when I could, but going to a smaller school, I mean, we didn't really have a lot of resources to do that kind of stuff. But one of the, I guess, beneficial things was that we never had tryouts for anything. So, if you were interested in something, you got it, because we always needed someone. So, there were no like really big science things, which would have been super cool. Quiz Bowl was the most academically driven thing that I was interested in at the time. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. No, not really. We didn't have any like AP. We didn't have any AP courses except for English and literature. Or no, sorry, we had literature at my high school when I graduated. They added some more when I left, but the only time we only had AP Lit. We didn't have any AP Bio or any AP Calc or anything like that. So, we didn't have any groups to like get involved in after school science or anything like that. So, my science exposure wasn't as much as others, but again, that doesn't mean that you can't, develop an interest outside of those clubs.
Yeah. And that's a great point. And, you talked about your Medical Explorers program, and obviously that was, influential there. And, we'll hear a little bit more about what drew everybody to medicine and neurosurgery eventually. But, again, we're just setting that stage of, you don't have to be coming out of the womb a future doctor to pursue this. It's great if you have that interest, and we'll encourage you to do it and to, give you advice on how to get that done. But for the person who, maybe has a little bit of that imposter syndrome as they're developing an interest in medicine and, what some would say is a later in life, which is not really a correct term, but it is a possible thing to do. So it sounds like all of us were, we were busy in high school. We were, pretty academically oriented, whether or not that was in science or not. I don't remember nights of being stressed and like, trying to cram to get homework done and study for, the next exam. So this might be a little bit of a stretch, but you remember like how you went about balancing that, or, what advice you would have to students that are feeling stressed about that stuff now?
Yeah. So, high school is definitely tough because, like you said, Mike, you're having to balance, maybe sports, maybe, clubs after school, trying to get, your college essays in, keeping your grades up, ACT, SAT, all those things. And really what at that, point in time, it comes down to is just time management. That's really what I had. I was a big schedule guy. I was like the one guy in my high school that actually used my agenda that I got from the school, and everyone like ragged me for it, but it really helped because I just had so much crap to do that it really, set the tone for how I progressed through college and even medical school. I write things down on my to-do list all the time. And even back then, you don't have to do this at all, but I was writing it down to like the hour. It was like, okay, my homework will probably take me like an hour and a half, so then I'll have an hour and a half to play video games or whatever. So I don't recommend that, but it just helped me keep on track and made sure that I was able to get everything done. And if it took a little bit of sacrifice. There were some nights where I, couldn't hang out with my friends or, couldn't play video games or, do some fun things. But, it was a small price to pay at that time for, some better scores on your tests or better performance in athletics or at Quiz Bowl or, whatever it may have been.
Yeah. So I don't think I developed any form of like time management or even sense of time management in high school. So like I was exaggerating. So I did do soccer for during high school, like for the first 3 years. So there was a component I had to balance academics and sports and stuff. And, we were practicing, 5 days a week, having a game on the weekend. But I never felt like I needed to develop the hardcore time management strategies that really came up in like college, for sure. Honestly, the worst part about high school is just that you don't have that freedom that you have in college. Like you can't really be your own person. It's hard to find people who you have similar personalities to, especially if you're like science that much. It can be a little difficult. So like socially in high school, if you're not feeling like you're fitting in, trust me, college is so much better. College is great.
Absolutely.
Look forward to that. You're gonna have a good time.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And, we're getting at probably what most people really are worried about in high school is that fitting in and that, feeling like you're becoming your own person. And that's that, kind of typical struggle that people are having with themselves, with their friends, with their parents. So, I think that's another good point is that, just because you want to pursue medicine doesn't mean that you're going to end up as a nerd for life. Even though I got to say, being a nerd is pretty cool and it does pay off in the end. But we just change, I think, the connotation of being a nerd, right? From what it means in high school to what it means now. So cool. Yeah, I agree with everything there. So I didn't know what time management was, in the way that I know it now or in college and high school, because it just, it wasn't important. I think a lot of that, like you said, is the freedom where it's like, well, I know that I'm going to be at home and doing my homework from this time, and then my parents are going to drive me to Boy Scouts after, and that'll go from 7 to 8:30, and then if I have extra homework, I'll finish that up after. And your schedule is sort of made for you, which can make college pretty challenging. So maybe we can start, kind of pivoting that conversation there to at least looking towards college, because that's an area of concern. Now we're starting to talk about standardized test prep, college applications, college essays. So we were all academically oriented. Obviously, college was an important decision for us. What were you thinking of when you were looking at college, and how important do you think it really is to choose the right college, in terms of academics or opportunities for pursuing medicine?
I think it's incredibly important to find the college that you fit in the best at. That was what I was looking at, is making sure that I was at a university that was an environment that I wanted to be in and that other people wanted me in. And I am personally not a person that thrives in a cutthroat environment. I am a very, we're going to be here. We're going to help each other out. We're going to, if someone's struggling, we're going to pick them up. If I'm struggling, I hope that someone else can help me, type thing. And so I knew right away that I just didn't even look at the Harvards, the Yales, the Hopkins, and it's not against them at all. And if you're wanting to go there, that's great. I just knew personally I wouldn't thrive in that environment. Another thing for me was cost. College is expensive, as everyone knows. Medical school is expensive, but college can be too. And I was looking at the cost of universities and kind of balancing it out relative to my degree. I didn't want to, there's always the chance that you get to college and you're like, I'm gung-ho about medicine, I'm gung-ho about this. And you get there and you're taking Bio 1 and Gen Chem and you're like, wow, this kind of sucks. And now you're at a university that you're paying $30,000 a year to, and you're potentially looking at a degree that it, could be a tough time getting your loans paid off. And I was thinking about those things. So I ended up going to the University of Toledo, in Toledo, Ohio. It was about an hour away from my hometown. So if I needed to get home, or, my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, wanted to come see me, it was an easy drive. I could drive home. Tuition was very, very cheap for a public university in the MAC. And there were many students that went to medical school from there. They had interest groups, they had a pre-med track, and all those things just lined up. And it just was the perfect match for me. And I met a lot of my, best friends there that were in my wedding. And those were the three main important things in my choice of college.
Yeah.
Awesome. So what you're saying is school name is not everything.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, now those schools do have perks. I don't, when you hear of someone who went to Harvard undergrad or, those places, your ears kind of perk up a little bit. You're like, oh, wow. And obviously, if you're wanting to pursue medicine, especially neurosurgery, you have endless connections there. If you want to do those undergraduate research projects and have 10 papers before you even apply, those are the places to do it. But you don't have to pursue that route.
Awesome. Yeah. I think that's, such an important thing for people to hear, especially we are at that time where, college decisions are being made or acceptances are being sent out. And I mean, I remember being devastated that I didn't get my, so-called first choice in college at that point. And, it's a hard thing to hear, for a lot of people. Maybe that's your first kind of sense of rejection or, being told no in a serious way. But it does work out, and you end up finding a home where you're meant to be. So how about you, Kyle? What was the college app process like?
Yeah, so I guess my college application process was really easy. I applied to one university, and that's the University of Louisiana, which was in my hometown. So it was kind of like a no-brainer. I knew I wanted to be engineering. I knew where I wanted to be, and I wanted to be in my hometown. So easy. And really, I didn't have any forethought to it. I didn't think about long-term, like, how is this going to affect me? What's the research stats like? What's their rankings like? I didn't look at anything. And I think it just accidentally worked out the right way because I ended up with no debt, which I'm very, very thankful for. It ended up like that. And it also, my university is also pretty strong in research. So I did have endless research opportunities. Like it was strong enough in research to where there was always something going on, but it wasn't necessarily so competitive amongst the undergraduate students that they would fill up instantly. Because I've heard a lot of experiences from other people, from a lot of these pre-med powerhouses, to where research labs you got to like fight for and apply for, where at a lot of these like state institutions, if you want that position, you're going to get it. And I'll also echo the fact that, yeah, if you get into like your top undergraduate universities, you will have a lot of doors open. You will have really cool research. You'll probably be working with a medical college. I know my university didn't have a medical college, and if it did, it might have helped me get some research in. But yeah, a good university will open some doors. But from what I guess to conclude is, with my experience, I don't think I had any doors closed, and I would probably do the same thing again.
Awesome. I mean, that's the testament to the decision that you made, is if you would do it again, right? So that's really cool and good to hear. I echo those points on a name, and if you are fortunate enough to get into an Ivy League and can afford it, because I think that is an important part of this discussion. There will be benefits. It's just whether or not those benefits for you outweigh the potential downsides in that cost or other factors, or Taylor, like you were talking about, like not thriving in an environment that is that cutthroat. I've heard similar things of like, you want to get into a lab at some of these institutions, like you might get in, but then they'll put 3 people on a project and just let them fight it out and see which one succeeds. And now, like, I'm all for capitalism and good market competition there, but that sounds a little, kind of facetious to have somebody doing that to start off. So, just some general points for me when I was, making my college decision. So I ended up at Rutgers, which, so I was from New York, and then went to school in New Jersey, went to New Jersey State School. Was fortunate that financial aid worked out to be about the same. But honestly, a big part of making that decision was like, I didn't want to go to SUNY Binghamton, which was like 13th grade for a lot of people that I went to high school with. So I went to the New Jersey 13th grade at Rutgers in New Brunswick. There were some kind of cool things in that it did have a medical school affiliated at the time. I knew there were opportunities for research, and that was something that was kind of going through my mind. I wasn't willing to accept that I wanted to do MD PhD at that point, because I could do math, and I realized what time or how old I would be at the end of all that training. But I knew I liked research, and I kind of knew that that was going to be the track that I was going down. So I guess that was, somewhat more of an intentional part of my decision. But I definitely wasn't, going after names there. It was important to me to be, pretty close to home and be able to get home when I needed to.
Yeah. And really, like with a lot of these universities, like I think Taylor said, like find where you fit, find a culture that's going to support you and really bring out the best in you. Like kind of just figure out what interests you want, and then see what universities can really help you the most. And like, even like if like a university is like just social culture, like if like I know a lot of queer folks out there want to go out, leave certain areas in the South to like the Northeast where they feel more comfortable. There you go. That's a consideration that you should heavily consider, where you feel like the people around you will support you and take care of you. So, but at the same time, it's not the end of the day if you don't get into your first choice.
Absolutely.
Yes, you can do just as well, being where you're meant to be. And I do, I subscribe to, that there are powers in the universe, whatever you want to call them, that put you where you're meant to be. And I think you get that feeling. Like I can remember my visit at Rutgers, standing under the Robert Wood Johnson Medical School sign, and like just knowing like, all right, this was going to be home. And that's where I ended up for undergrad and now 8 years of medical school. So that's definitely, it worked out. I don't know if you guys had similar experiences with just being there and knowing that was what was meant.
Yeah, I had a very similar experience. It was just like like on the visit day, it was super chill. Got a tour of the labs by one of the biology deans at the time. And he was super kind, and it was just like it was him touring me around with like 5 other people. And it was just us going through all the research labs, saying like, if you come here, you'll have a chance to go to medical school if you work hard. And it was just very personable. And I took that to heart. And I thought I had wanted to go to Ohio State, and I went on a visit there. And this is nothing against Ohio State, obviously, but I went there on a normal visit day in the middle of the summer, and there were 115 students there, which was more than half my high school. And I was like, this is just like sensory overload. They're like, there are parts of the campus you'll never even see in your 4 years here. There's 7 rec centers, I'm just like, this is amazing, but like, it's just swallowed me whole already. And so, those are some considerations that I took, but like you guys had the same experience, and even medical schools too. You go into your interviews and you're like, that's the place. That was awesome. You have that gut feeling.
Definitely. How about you, Kyle?
Yeah, no, I keep up with my university. Like, I love it so much. I had such a good time there. Like, we made it to the big dance this year, so we're pretty excited about that. Yeah, like and I try to keep involved with the pre-med stuff over there. Like, I just got off the phone with a pre-med student who had some questions. They got their first interview at LSU for med school. So
cool.
Bringing back memories. They're going to kill it. I'm excited for them, but just staying involved with undergrad people, and it's a very similar thing. It's a theme that recurs in neurosurgery, but it really should recur for all academics. Is take care of the people after you. Bring them with you. Show them your knowledge, because that's because you should do it, and it's fun. How about you, Mike?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I similarly, being an MD PhD applicant, I did not necessarily feel like Rutgers was, giving us all the information we needed to be successful. So I've tried to do, some similar stuff to help people out. I think that is something, you're right, that neurosurgery does really well, is that kind of philanthropy and looking out for the next generation. I think part of it is with how small the field is, and what you're entrusting people to do if they do enter the field of neurosurgery. You want to make sure that you're mentoring them just as well as you can. So I'm glad to hear that that's a kind of common thought here. So all right, let's kind of think about moving on. So now we applied to college, we chose the college, and now we get there. What do you even do to start? Like, how do you do well and get to the point where you even can consider applying to med school?
Let's catch us up to speed. So where are we right now? Are we still what careers are we thinking about for day one of college, just so we can frame it?
Oh, good point. All right, so let's look at it maybe from 2 ways. So the person who is pretty sure they want to do medicine, and then the person who needs medicine to kind of find them while they're at college.
Gotcha. Okay, so yeah, honestly, I was kind of in the second position. So my aunt is actually a big influence on me. She's a pediatrician, and so she's the only physician in our family. And after kind of getting a better idea of what she was doing, I think medicine got on the radar at that point. But I was starting chemical engineering, and I really kind of like the sciencey part of that. So what I did was I kind of got involved with my home department, started doing research, kind of got to see what engineers were doing. And then I also joined the pre-med society to see what they were doing. And by having kind of one foot in each community, you can kind of get an understanding of where you feel like you might fit in more. And like college, you have that time. You have so much time, and especially your first semester, like you can do that. And like I know I talked about this for one of our early neurosurgery podcasts, but I think research early is just great. And I think that holds true for college. You meet people, it helps you in your career long term, and it's kind of fun. So I would recommend people getting involved in research. And I did civil engineering, renewable energy research. So it was not even medicine related, just the general research process I think is important.
Awesome. And then Taylor, so, I mean, it sounds like you were applying to schools, you knew that you wanted to find a decent pre-med program. So you're kind of hitting the ground and you're like, all right, I got to make sure that I'm doing what I need to do to make myself a competitive applicant when I get to that point. So what's going through your mind there?
Yeah, for sure. So when I took it as, leaving, I knew kind of medicine was what I thought I wanted to pursue. based on prior experiences, but I didn't have any like real like working in healthcare experiences until the summer between my freshman and sophomore year of college. But I told myself I was just going to start out pre-med, see how it went, see if I liked the courses, because I knew I wanted to do something science related. So I was like, well, this has to be, this has to be a pretty good match. And when you start out in college, for those of you in high school, you're going to be taking your intro level biologies, your intro level chemistries, unless you have credits for them. But, most people start out taking Bio 1 and Gen Chem 1 or Bio 2, Gen Chem 2. So those can apply to a lot of science fields. And, like Kyle said, you have a lot more time than what you think you'll have. And that opens it up, after you've created a nice habit of, getting solid grades, because you need a good GPA, a fairly good GPA to get into medical school. After you do that, start getting into the interest groups. So I was involved in like a pre-med, it was like a fraternity, sorority type thing. And I got involved in that, met a lot of my great friends. I was fortunate the dorms I was in were the honors dorms, and a lot of my, my roommates were, one of them's a PGY1 anesthesiology resident now. The other one just graduated from dental school at Case Western. So, you get around people that have the similar interests, like you guys said, and you kind of just have these friendships, and you have really tightly knit, close knit friends that, push each other and, want each other to do better. And you can also find that in research too. I didn't start research until my sophomore year, and it was in basic science labs and like optogenetics. And my last year of undergrad, I did research with like C. elegans and looking at neuromodulation in them. So it was a great exposure. I met a lot of great people, but that like college is that time to kind of branch out and get in those interest groups and meet those people that you're interested in, versus when you're in high school, like we previously mentioned, you're kind of stuck with the same people. You're surrounded by people. You don't have a lot of like, leeway in your schedule. So, when you're in college, sometimes it's hard to branch out, but, make sure you do that, because you're going to meet a lot of good people, and you're going to meet a lot of people that will help you along your way.
Awesome. So the theme I'm kind of hearing there, as far as like what the really important things to do early is just get involved. It probably doesn't really matter necessarily what it is, although if you can find something that is career oriented, or at least is going to give you exposure to things career related, just do those things and get involved in the community there. I think it's very easy. I can remember people in freshman year of undergrad, and I think, maybe for a short time I was like this, where, you lock yourself in the dorm room and you're just cramming and studying the entire time. Like I actually read the entire like first 3 chapters of my Gen Chem book, and it wasn't necessary, right? I should have been doing other things with that time. But, it's just like, you feel like that's the only thing you have control over with some of the craziness of like, wanting to apply to medical school. So you feel like you have to do that. So advice I would give to, my former self is like, you don't need to do that. Like, do well in classes, of course, because those are the first things that people are going to look at when you're applying, sort of as the screening. But make sure that like you're figuring out if this is really what you want to do.
Yeah. Let me touch on a very important topic. Is make sure you don't make sure you keep your GPA in good standing for that first semester, because that's a tale as old as time. Is people get into college and they have to continue. They have to fight against their first year's GPA. So if you can, and if it doesn't go well your first year, like it's not game over. But like I want to save you the chagrin. So just explore things, but also make sure you're like keeping your GPA healthy just to get into med school.
Yeah, absolutely. It's such a fine balance with that. College is great. You will have a lot of fun in college, academically and socially. So enjoy that. But yeah, don't be the person that starts out pre-med and then feels like they can't really be pre-med after. It's not something that's unrecoverable, and we'll talk about that, probably in our next episode on this. But certainly easier to do it without having to fight yourself or your former self. All right, so I think in this 45 minutes we really laid a nice foundation of going from a freshman in high school to freshmen in college, finding our interest in medicine, and then, making sure that we are really interested in it. I think that's the most important thing with that early exposure is, make sure that you actually want to pursue this and that there's not anything else that makes you as happy as medicine does. So any last bits of advice that, maybe we can end with our general question of what piece of advice would you give to that freshman year of in high school that you were formerly? Start with Kyle.
Yeah, I know for me, like really, like we're giving all this advice about like, like courses and stuff to take and stuff, but like high school is really a low stakes environment, and you should be treating yourself nicely. Don't stress yourself out too much. It's going to be fine. If high school is a weird time, it's hard to fit in if you're really into science, but college is great. And if you want to go into neurosurgery, then like fantastic. I'm very happy that you have that clarity and you see that's something you want to do. It's a really interesting and fascinating career, but don't forget to enjoy life as a high schooler because it's some good times.
Definitely. How about you, Tyler?
Honestly, you stole the words right out of my mouth. It's exactly what I would tell myself is, you can have all these like academic aspirations and like, you want to do this, you want to do that. But there's that saying, like, I wish they would tell you that you're in like the good old days, but like really in high school, like you might be busy, but you'll never be as free as like what you were in high school and college. So like, take the time to enjoy, being around your friends, being around your family every single day, because as you progress, as you guys know, throughout school, it does get busier and busier, and medicine is an incredibly rewarding field, but it's also a field that comes with a lot of sacrifice. And so you should take that time and really enjoy it. And, if you are interested in neurosurgery, that's great, but don't skip out on your, going to your high school football game to read your Greenberg, go to the game and, like socialize with people and just make good friends and good connections. Cause, I'm having a party next Saturday for match, hopefully. And I'm inviting a lot of my high school friends in my high school hometown. So like, those are people that are going to, be your friends for life. And you should definitely work on, strengthening those and just enjoying your time while you're there. Cause, there are many days that I wish I was back, in high school playing sports or just hanging out with my friends during the day. And, so just enjoy it while you can.
Yeah, damn, y'all are giving me chills of nostalgia here thinking about.
I know that one got me too.
Yeah, I can't say it better than you guys did. This is the neurosurgery journey. Enjoy the journey. It's a long one. And you don't want to look back and, wish you, like Taylor said, had gone to that high school football game or had, skipped reading Greenberg for, hanging out with your friends. Also, don't read Greenberg if you're in high school.
Yeah, that was a bad. If you have a Greenberg in high school, it should be used to like prop up your like computer monitor that you're playing video games on or something. Yes. That book shouldn't even be
100%. 100%. No, this was a lot of fun, guys. Thanks for sharing your experiences. It's fun, getting to know what y'all were like back then here. So we've got an exciting lineup on the next couple episodes here. So, Kyle, you want to tell us what we're going to be learning about next week?
Yes. So next week we're going to be talking about medical students in global neurosurgery. So global neurosurgery is a really exciting field. It's basically giving us the abilities to collaborate and share knowledge with people across the globe because we have a lot to learn from them, and we could offer some things to them too. So collaboration is the name of the game in neurosurgery. So we're bringing on a third-year medical student from Rutgers to talk about his experience in global neurosurgery and how you can get involved as med students.
Sweet. That's going to be awesome. I know there's a ton of people that are interested in global neurosurgery. It's really, one of the hot new things to be involved with. And if anything you can be involved with, that's probably one of the most impactful things you can do from just a kind of as a force for good. So that's cool to hear. So we've got that coming up. Week after, we're going to hear from a couple of medical students and I think an undergraduate student about, what it's like attending some of these national meetings like the Congress of Neurological Surgeons or the American Association of Neurosurgeons meetings, because it's pretty intimidating. I remember going to my first, kind of academic conference as an undergraduate, and like, I was the only one going for my lab. I didn't really have that, mentor to show me around and tell me what it was going to be like, and it was definitely nerve wracking. So I'm excited to see what Gretchen has lined up for that. The following week, we're going to have perspectives of a international medical graduate. We've got Fareed Juma, who's currently a PGY1 at the University of Missouri in neurosurgery. So he's going to be a great, former applicant to hear about, and current neurosurgery resident. So excited for that. And then we don't want to let the cat out of the bag too early, but we've got an exciting, program director spotlight that's going to be happening in April. So we'll keep that one kind of close to the chest now. But we're excited for everything coming up. Thank you all for listening and supporting and being here for, again, almost 10 weeks. Super exciting. If there's ever anything you want to hear about that you feel like we're not getting to, please leave a comment or log on to Brain and Spine group and shoot us an email, and we'll be happy to try to tailor the content as well as we can to what your interests are. So with that, have a good night, everybody, and we'll see you next week as we continue the journey.